I'm a cartoonist, and if you're joining us for the first time, this is that drawing show thing that I do, where once a week I do a sketch cover. Please like, subscribe, comment. They all help the channel. They all help me. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Destiny Comics. Both the D and the C are capitalized. And for $1, there's only one tier. It's $1 a month. And it's called Put a Dollar in the Hat. And for all that, you get 6 posts a week. A pinup photo from our 8-Bit Pulp magazine series that we published on Monday. A podcast on Tuesday. The sketch video on Wednesday. A different sketch on Thursday. Friday is Cuddles at the Con, which is a photo of a different cosplayer with Mr. Cuddles at a different convention. Saturday we don't do any posts, and Sunday is a webcomic. So please follow Destiny Comics, like, subscribe, and yeah, that's what we do. That's the rundown. Me, my wife, and a couple of friends. This is Hit Girl. I picked up this sketch cover at my local comic book shop in town, Diggers Comics and Collectibles, off of Harvard Street. If you live in Hemet or in the area, it's a great shop. I really recommend it. I can't speak for every cartoonist, but sometimes I have hard times getting these sketch covers. I will say I have a hard time getting them at a fair price. I do not like to pay more than cover for a sketch cover. There are a lot of people out there who will charge $30-40 for a single sketch cover. Blank. And on the, like I said, sometimes I have a hard time getting them at a fair price. That's one of the reasons why I like my local shop. I've gone to Franken & Sons for sketch covers. I've gone hunting for sketch covers at different conventions and different... there was a time where I was driving literally like once a month. Me and a friend would drive 3 hours or so just so I could pick up sketch covers. I was a big fan of Kick-Ass when the first comic book came out. I really loved the first movie. There was a couple of things in the comic that I wish had made it into the movie. There's a scene after Kick-Ass gets hurt for the first time being a superhero and it doesn't go so well, where he decides he's become disenfranchised with comic books and he burns his collection. I wish that scene had made it into the movie. Just the comic was deeper in a lot of ways than the movie, but the comic doesn't have Nicolas Cage, so the movie has that going for it, because Nicolas Cage kills it in the first movie. I did not see the second movie, and partly because there's a very intense scene in the second series in the graphic novel where a character is violently raped, and I was done. I stopped reading the book. I don't know if that happens in the movie, but it was enough for me to be like, yeah, I don't need to read this. I'm not normally a sensitive when it comes to that kind of subject matter. It's usually very hard to offend me. But I'm somebody who likes his comic books to be a little bit more escapist. Not that they can't be serious and touch on serious things, but if I'm not having a good time, I don't need to read it. I can read something a little bit heavier if I want to be challenged. Comic books are, they're fun for me. They're action, they're suspense, it was violence for the sake of violence, and not a fan of that. In comic books, there's a classic term created by Gail Simone, fridging the girlfriend, and that's kind of what happened. It's when you intentionally hurt the girlfriend of the main character just to give him pathos, and it doesn't really need to happen. It all goes back to a very poorly written issue of the Green Lantern where Kyle Rayner comes home and finds his girlfriend's been cut up and put in his refrigerator. And comic books are a genre, so you can do anything in a comic book, and there's an audience for that kind of stuff, just like there's an audience for hardcore violence in movies. Sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. I prefer it when the violence is related to the character somehow. Like in A History of Violence. But yeah, Kick-Ass for me was one of those properties that I really loved when it first came out, and then that just soured it on me. Eventually I'll sit down and watch the sequel just because Jim Carrey's in it. And I know he denounces the movie, but that's because I forget, we have so many of them in America, but there was a school shooting after the movie had wrapped, and he just decided, I don't like guns, I don't like gun violence, and he didn't feel the need to promote the movie. Artists are gonna artist. When working with watercolor, A, it helps to make sure your brush is completely clean before you switch colors. But B, you're supposed to go from light to dark. And the reason why is because you can't lighten up the color. You can't go back. Once you go dark, you cannot lighten that up. Plaid is one of those colors that or not colors, but it can be fun to paint, but only once. If you were doing this in a comic book, oh. And I don't try to get, with plaid, I just try to make sure I get the hint of every color. I don't try to hit everything. I dab off some of the skin tone because it lightens it up. Sometimes you can go too dark with just the paint. And so by dabbing it, I know I'm going to get a lighter tone. And then you can always go back after you've lightened it up and again darken it. And I'm not going to darken the whole area, but I'm going to darken just parts of it, and it gives it that illusion of shadow. This is actually kind of a fun painting. I didn't think I'd have this much fun, but it is just kind of flowing. I was talking to at a convention. I wish I could remember his name. He was a really nice guy. I was talking to his colorist who worked for Image, and we were talking about guns in comics. And I'm not a gun guy. I couldn't tell you, anything about real guns. I've been bear hunting. I've been hunting, but most of my hunting experiences with bow and arrow and archery. Real men shit. I'll defend that statement, by the way. Like, I think it's a lot easier to. Anyone can kill with a gun. It takes skill to kill with a bow and arrow. And I was raised on archery. I was raised shooting bows and arrows. And it's a skill. But anyway, I don't know shit about guns. I really don't. And he was telling me that a lot of people, like, if you use the wrong era gun in a war story, or if you're like, he'll get letters about, like, oh, well, that was the wrong gun because they didn't use this, or people, or they'll tell you exactly what the model of the gun is, and I've been a comic book fan my whole life, and I've just never even, ever, like, I couldn't tell you, like, Punisher's weapons, or, who uses what, or all that stuff is just, meaningless. It's part of the story, but it's even in action films, I don't follow, like, okay, I know Bond uses a Walther PPK, but that's because it's part of his iconography, and Bishop or Cable's guns are just the same as the Punisher's guns. They're guns. They're big. They're common. Sorry about that. Sometimes my camera will shut off, and I had to just make sure the video was usable and wasn't corrupted. This came out pretty nice. I like the whole schoolgirl uniform gun thing from the first movie. I didn't know if I was gonna. So, there you have it. Hope you like this video. Like, subscribe. Once again, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/DestinyComics. There's one tier. It's $1 in the hat. That's all we're asking for. And for that, you get 6 posts a week, including these videos. You get Pinup photos on Monday, podcast on Tuesday, these lovely videos on Wednesday, a different sketch on Thursday. Friday is Mr. Cuddles at the Con, or Cuddles at the Con, where it's a photo of a cosplayer at a different convention that I've taken over the years with my stuffed teddy bear, Mr. Cuddles. Saturday there's no posts, and Sundays is webcomic day. So thank you. Hope you enjoy these videos. You know, have a good day. I hope you like these. So yeah.